On January 15, 2020, the United States and China signed a significant trade agreement. This Phase 1 deal, as it was called, aimed to ease the trade tensions that had been escalating between the two economic giants. The world watched with bated breath, hoping for a resolution to the trade war that threatened global economic stability. The deal, however, was signed just as a new invisible threat was emerging. The COVID-19 pandemic, then still largely confined to China, would soon engulf the world, dramatically reshaping the global economic landscape and overshadowing the trade deal. The signing ceremony, held in Washington, D.C., presented a picture of cautious optimism. U.S. President Donald Trump and Chinese Vice Premier Liu He shook hands, a symbolic gesture of cooperation after months of tit-for-tat tariffs. The 86-page agreement, the product of intense negotiations, outlined a roadmap for a more balanced trade relationship. It included commitments from China to increase purchases of American goods and services, address some intellectual property concerns, and improve market access for U.S. companies. The Phase 1 agreement centered around a few key areas. First and foremost was China's pledge to increase its purchases of U.S. goods and services by $200 billion over 2 years. This commitment aimed to reduce the significant trade deficit between the two countries, a point of contention for the Trump administration. The agreement also included provisions related to intellectual property protection, a long-standing concern for U.S. businesses operating in China. China agreed to strengthen its enforcement against trade secret theft and counterfeiting, addressing some of the concerns raised by American companies. Furthermore, the deal aimed to improve market access for U.S. companies in sectors like financial services, agriculture, and manufacturing. China committed to streamlining its approval processes for foreign companies and addressing some of the regulatory barriers that had hampered U.S. investment. The agreement also established a dispute resolution mechanism, allowing both sides to address any violations or concerns that might arise. While the Phase 1 deal was hailed by some as a breakthrough, it was, in essence, an uneasy truce. The agreement addressed some of the immediate concerns but left many of the thornier issues unresolved. Structural issues such as China's industrial subsidies and its state-led economic model remained unaddressed. These issues, at the heart of the trade tensions, continued to cast a long shadow over the U.S.-China economic relationship. Moreover, the deal was heavily weighted in favor of the United States. China made significant concessions, committing to large-scale purchases and regulatory changes, while the U.S. made fewer concrete commitments. This imbalance, coupled with the Trump administration's unpredictable approach to trade policy, led many analysts to question the deal's long-term viability. The Phase 1 agreement was signed just weeks before the COVID-19 pandemic swept across the globe, upending the global economy and fundamentally altering the geopolitical landscape. The pandemic, which originated in China, strained U.S.-China relations, adding a new layer of complexity to the already fraught trade relationship. The subsequent war in Ukraine further heightened tensions, pushing the U.S. and China further apart. In the wake of these events, the Phase 1 agreement has largely faded into the background. While some of its provisions remain in effect, its impact has been overshadowed by the broader geopolitical shifts. The deal, once seen as a potential turning point in U.S.-China relations, now appears as a fleeting moment of cooperation in an increasingly competitive relationship. The future of U.S.-China trade, much like the future of the global order, remains uncertain.